Hello, hi. Welcome to Wonderslut. I am with Toni Naj. So you don't pronounce the Y. It's just Naj.
Yeah, no, it's Hungarian, so no why. No whys.
No Y's. Okay. I'm so excited to have this conversation. I saw you on TikTok and you're a somatic comedian, correct?
Well, I'm a comedian and then I also am a somatic practitioner. So I wouldn't like call myself a somatic comedian, but I guess all comedians are somatic in that they are in their body, yeah?
Yes. Okay. So introduce yourself however you feel the need.
Yeah, I guess I'm a comedian and I am a somatic practitioner and a dancer and a writer and a philosopher.
Okay. What does somatic practitioner mean?
Well, somatic means like of the body, and so it's moving your body with intention beyond artistic expression, so investigating the body with the purpose of um your own inquiry versus like I am moving my body as a dancer, and that obviously there's elements of your own personal inquiry and expression, but there's also like technique involved and lineage around like you moving as other people move and alignment. Dance isn't just about expression or inquiry. There's also a lot of technique involved, where with somatic movement it's more about the internal journey of how you move your body with the understanding of the emotional complexity of what is inside the body and what the body wants to communicate to your ego or to your mind.
Okay. I love this so much. I often walk through the park and I like do weird things with my body and I'm sure people can see me doing it, but I thought how cool would it be if it was just like natural for you to walk with your hands in the air or to skip or whatever. We're like just these little robots, right? Stuck in these bodies that have been taught and programmed to behave a certain way. And so breaking out of that is like opening up all sorts of neural pathways, right?
Yeah, and I think doing that with intention and like some sort of like a deeper awareness and focus is like also part of it, right? People can kind of like raise their arms and it can be a gesture and there's value to that, but then there's a mental focus that can come into like, well, what is it to raise my arms and where am I raising my arms from and how am I supporting my arms and like what does that mean for the back of my heart, and then what is the information coming from my heart, and like how can I vibrate my wings within that process. So there's like ways in which we can unconsciously move, which also has value. There's value to anything that you're doing when you're moving your body, but then there's an extreme like experience that one can do around your body where you have um deep focus, and that deep focus is going to bring different information.
Okay. Talk to me more about that.
I think like most of us spend our lives disassociating from our bodies, right? And like we're moving our bodies so much that there's so much like unconscious. Like, okay, here, I just picked up a cup, all right, and I put the cup down. That was a pretty unconscious movement. But like there's also a way where I could be like, okay, I'm like really mindfulness. This is the Buddhist conversation of like how mindful can you be? Can you feel the texture of the cup in your hand? Do you notice how you're squeezing it? What tension is that causing? What is the effort? Like, and then I put it down. So that took a lot of more mental focus than that, right?
Yes.
And I think when we disassociate from the body, it means that we're not noticing all of these details that the body's experiencing because we're not being quote unquote mindful. I think mindful is a word that's gotten like co-opted by by like white Western thinking. But like if you think of mindfulness like truly from the Buddhist perspective, it's not following the thread of the ego, and it's being so in the present that you're noticing everything about the present moment, and like, oh, this cup, I feel the texture in my hand and I feel the weight and yada yada, which is like a lot of focus. And it's like it's like really hard to go about the average day in a capitalist society being fully mindful, right? Like it is a practice of
Mhm.
emotional focus that like is difficult to live an entire day like that. So you do it, sporadically as much as one can, through different modalities in order to heighten the awareness of how much we are not aware, if that makes sense.
Yes, that is so true. I live in the middle of nowhere in Texas. You're on the East Coast, right?
Yeah, also in the woods.
Okay, I love that for you.
Same.
I love being in nature. I just feel like I don't know how I functioned in a city now that I live here because there's life is so much slower. It gives you like the opportunity to slow down and be present in the moment. But I think you're right. Capitalism requires us to be just so busy that we're like cutting off. You have to. I don't think there's any way to be fully in your body if you're sitting in meetings all day doing meaningless bullshit. I
Yeah, and even if you're not sitting in meetings all day, it's really takes a lot of focus, like our minds wander because it's boring to be in that level of focus. It's really, and it's work. It's a lot of work. And it's actually less work when your mind just kind of blippity bloopy wanders off into the land, which usually causes a lot of despair, but it's like less mental effort. So it's like, even if you were having a great day, even if like you're dancing, even if you're doing quote unquote somatic work, the amount your mind checks out to not pay attention and you have to bring it back into the space of attention, it's like you'd probably have to bring your mind back 10,000 times within like 5 minutes.
yep. Yep.
That's how much the mind wants to wander, So it isn't about like the expectation that your mind isn't going to wander, you're not going to disassociate from your body. It's just like, oh yeah, like when I bring myself back to this state of mindfulness, I am okay, or like that is a practice of deep devotional focus. That's all I can say. And it's not impossible, but I'm going to say, you have to be a very practiced person. It's very rare to have someone that's like in that state all the time. Like I'm not exactly sure that can exist, but like, maybe someone in a cave that's been in there for 40 years could sort of achieve it, kind of.
I don't know. I think the journey is bringing ourselves back, right? It's all about like the tension between going unaware and then becoming aware. Oh,
Yeah.
look, I must have
Yeah.
missed so much. Like, where was I? I don't know. Lost in my thoughts somewhere. And
Yeah.
maybe that is like you're connecting to a higher consciousness when your mind wanders. I don't know. Are we in a different state?
Well, I mean, it's funny, like the word higher consciousness always like to me implies hierarchy, because higher, lower, there's
Yep.
something about it where I'm like,
Yep.
so I almost want to say like a more expansive consciousness, and
Okay.
to have a more expansive consciousness takes like ironically the deepest amount of focus.
Yes.
So I think the level of focus required for more expansive consciousness is like a practice that's incredibly difficult.
I like that. Expansive consciousness. Okay.
Yeah.
So, have you always been an artist or did you have like a muggle job like early on in your life?
Um well, I've always been someone that like rejected the status quo.
Yes.
So that led me to do a lot of like service jobs because I was like, okay, well, like, I'm not part of the man if I'm like a waitress or like a bartender.
Yes.
Like I think my rejection was being part of like a deep sort of like capitalist agenda. But I got into like the nonprofit world in my 20s, like really wanting to quote unquote change the world, and then kind of recognizing that nonprofit world, like, you have an ideal vision that like, oh, systems are the answer, or like, oh, if it's a nonprofit, like that means that like none of the trappings of capitalism are part of this institution, which is like 100% not true. So I think a lot of time in my 20s was me trying to figure out how to like have a career or like be a part of like a capitalist system that was like ultimately anti-capitalist or that was like challenging the destruction of capitalism. And then I had a kid in my late 20s and, you know, spent some time writing. Like that's when I really got into writing because it was kind of like the beginning of the blogosphere. And so I was like writing for different publications because that felt like anti-capitalist, you know, like expression through writing. And like that gave me the opportunity to like be with my kid when she was young. And then comedy, stand-up comedy kind of came as this other outlet from writing. And then I also like own a dance studio. So like, yeah, I've always kind of tried to figure out how not to be a part of the machine
Mm.
of like of just propagating a capitalist agenda of profit. Yeah, I've always kind of rejected that.
I love that. What is your family background? Were you raised religious or
My parents are professors.
okay? Okay,
So
tracks. Is that
pardon?
that tracks? You're like encouraged to be a free thinker, right? I
Well,
mean,
I just was like not monitored. You know, like I think a lot of us who grew up in the 80s and the 90s like were not monitored. So like I think I was just not monitored and there was an energy in the house that was like education, but like education in what form, you know? I think I had smart parents and so that gave my brain the opportunity to explore intelligence, but I wouldn't say they were like you be a free thinker, you know, like they were just kind of like working. Um so yeah. And like my dad's mother was very religious. She was like super Catholic. Um and so we went to church to like appease her, but she was also like a badass bitch. Like she was like really loving, but like very capitalist. I'm not very capitalist, I'm sorry, very misogynist and
mhm.
very like patriarchal, but also like really loving. Like and
Mm,
she was you know, back again, 80s and 90s. I think it was a lot more of like you were with your grandparents a lot, you know? Parents
yeah,
were working and you're with your grandparents. So I was with her a lot and I wanted to make her happy. So I kind of like acted as if like, yeah, like okay about the church and the religion and stuff and the Catholicism. Like I didn't like deny it to her, but something that I never was down with hell. Like I was like, that makes no sense to me.
I love that. I love that for you. Oh my
I was
gosh.
just like, no. And I also really didn't like the concept of eternal heaven either. I was like, that sounds really boring. Like I wasn't like I didn't like the narratives weren't vibing with me. And I also didn't like how like the religions would be like this is right and others are wrong or like this is myth. Like
Yes.
I didn't vibe with that. So I never believed. Like I was like a faker. I was like I wanted to make her happy, so I'd be like, "Okay, I'll go with you." But I was like, not for me. I never believed.
I love that for you. What a gift. I dismantled my faith, I don't know, 10 years ago. I mean,
Oh,
maybe I
that's
started from
recent.
the beginning, but yeah, I was in my 40s, 30s, maybe late 30s. Yeah, and it was because I had so much trauma in my body and I was introduced to energy work, Reiki,
Yeah.
totally changed my perspective. I was like, what the fuck is this? And
Wow.
if God is in anything, in everything, how do I possibly believe in this God in this book? Like what? That makes no sense. So I love
Yeah.
that for you because that was some deep programming for me. But I was, my dad's a pastor, so I was
Well,
deep.
yeah. I think because my parents were kind of like not that committed, they were just like taking me on the pretense of appeasing my dad's mother that
Uh-huh.
like I didn't they weren't saying anything. They were just like bringing me. You know, they weren't like this is it or this isn't it. But I think that like what you experience with your father being like not only encouraging it but like this is my identity. Of course that was going to infiltrate you in a different way. You know, I think I had more space through the transitive property of my parents not being like my dad had already untangled himself.
Do you think that that is affected like Brene Brown always says there's two different kinds of people, those who believe they are worthy and those who believe they aren't, and I think that is true because I grew up feeling very unworthy. And I'm
Um,
guessing you did not.
no, the funny thing is, of course I did. The funny thing is that I have this joke that I like tweeted once is that there's two kinds of people in this world, people that say there are two kinds of people and people that don't. You know, and I'm like, I actually don't think there are two kinds of people in this world except for those two kinds of people. You know, everyone thinks they're unworthy. I haven't met a person on planet Earth who doesn't question their own worthiness.
You think so? I don't know. I think
Absolutely.
narcissists are pretty like,
Oh, they're the most insecure. They're the most insecure people I've ever met. That's why it's so self-oriented. I mean, narcissism is just a trauma response, just as like codependent personality is just a trauma response. Like it's just a different way of responding to the same sort of like confusion as a child.
hmm,
So, I mean, I would say that like everyone struggles with worthiness. I truly don't
yes.
know. Even Donald Trump, even Elon Musk, even Jeffrey Epstein, they all struggled with worthiness.
Yeah, for sure. Whether they're aware of that or not, I guess is beside the point.
It is beside the point. Whether they admit it or not is beside the point. The truth is that you would never be able to be manipulated to the degree that these people have been manipulated and compromised if you weren't struggling with worthiness.
Yep. Okay, I think that's fair. So maybe I don't know. I'm going down this rabbit hole of like ego is a different beast, right? You think that you have all the things from an egoic perspective.
Well, like ego, it depends on how you're looking at it, like from the Freudian, like ego, super ego, id kind of vibe, or like the Buddhist ego, which, like, I don't know. I'm not really, like, I think Freud is an incredibly problematic thinker, and like I don't subscribe to his philosophies or his science. You know, I'm just like, nah, not for me. So when I think of ego, I think of it more from like the Buddhist perspective, which is the ego is intimately tied to our humanity. It is that like kind of
Hmm.
deeply flawed
Mm.
human part of us that is the voice in your head that's chitter chatting, or like the consciousness that has been programmed by humanity, right? It's like the expansive self is beyond the human programming, and the ego is merely the part of us that has been programmed and conditioned by other humans.
Okay, that makes sense.
But when people say like you have a big ego, you know, like what are they saying is like you have an inflated sense of self that is masking your deep sense of insecurity and unworthiness, you know?
Yes. Okay. An inflated sense of self. I don't know. I feel like the the journey for me has been to love myself. Like I feel like everything kind of oriented around me truly loving myself.
Yeah.
So when people tell me I'm full of myself, I'm like, good. I think we're supposed to be. Like I don't
Well, I think you're in a culture where like the language is like very flawed, right? Like cuz again, like people are calling ego in like the where you are in this like very Freudian understanding of what an ego is. So like ego being this like warped sense of self that they're saying it can be too big, right? Or too small or however. Where like I think where I'm coming at it is like the ego is your programming. That is what the ego is. And what you're talking about is like radical self acceptance, which has nothing to do with one's um, like
with
that is like the embrace that is the embracing of one's own understanding of their programming and having compassion that like everything about you is in reaction to your programming. Therefore, to love yourself completely is to be honest that like your flaws are a part of your programming, just like your, you know, behavior patterns are a part of your programming, and that it's only through self-love that you'll actually be able to shift these things.
yes. Okay.
So I think a lot of people are like just misusing the word and like and reacting to self-love as if that's something that you can have too much of. Like that's impossible.
Yes, that's fair.
Yeah.
Agree with that. So it's a containment. I don't know. Okay.
Well, self-love shouldn't be contained because self-love is a journey of like radical self-exploration and self-acceptance. And that doesn't mean that you're like, I love myself so much that I never have to change. It's like you love yourself so much that you know you're in a constant state of change, and you know you're in a constant state of like trying to get to know yourself better in order to be the best version of you for yourself and others, and you can't have that ethos or that energy if you don't love yourself and you don't value yourself.
Yes, I agree with that. Um, okay, and your other title was you're a dancer. You have a dance studio. So what kind of dance are we talking about?
Just like classic hip hop dance, like contemporary dance, a belly dance. I do like training of like flexibility and strength, just like classic dance.
Okay, I love that. So do you dance in your kitchen by yourself?
Sure. I'm usually like resting at home. Like I move enough. I'm not like, hey, everybody, but
I got you.
I move a lot. I don't need to move anymore. I feel like I think I also like to just sit and cook in the kitchen.
You like to sit and cook? You
Yeah, I'm like, that's what I'm doing. I don't need to dance any more than I already dance, I guess is what I'm saying.
I got you. I love that for you. So you live alone? You just have one kid?
No, I have a husband and one child.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah,
So you're in a house.
I'm in a home.
You're in a home
I'm
with
in a
all the
home with some people. Yeah, I got people in the house.
people. I was thinking I can't wait for my children to like move out because I love to be alone.
How many do you have?
I have two kids. They're 13 and 15. They're delightful. So fun, obviously, but I really like being alone.
Yeah, 15 is my daughter's age.
Oh, okay. Very cute. That's a
Mhm.
fun age. I feel like they're coming into themselves. They talk back to me and I love it. Like, let's do this. Yes.
I
Stand up for yourself, please.
I think 15 is interesting because she's also forming a lot of like her own like moral compass, and that's interesting to witness is like what she will and won't tolerate from others and how she's like analyzing adults in her life and like noticing like I think like kids have to deal with like a lot of really toxic, unregulated adults. And
Yes.
like I kind of have to keep reminding her, in like certain situations where, she starts to get really stressed out. And I'm like, because of an adult's behavior. And I'm like, hey, like, this is actually just like a really dysregulated adult who's like being inappropriate, and actually shouldn't be taking their stress out on their students. Like that's actually problematic.
Mm,
So like you don't have to take that on. I understand it's like stressful and the energy impacts you, but like it's important to notice that like that behavior pattern had nothing to do with you and more to do with their like dysregulation.
did you have language like that growing up for how adults behaved, or is that new for you?
Like, did my parents talk to me like that? Absolutely not. No.
I think we're giving our kids such a gift of language to help them understand that it's not judgment. We're not shaming them for being dysregulated. It's just a thing. It comes from wounding in their childhood. And you could be like, I see you. I see maybe you just need a hug.
Yeah. No, I think like the generation that is parents right now are definitely, the elder millennials and the Gen X. Like, I think there is an effort to just do things differently than the boomers. Obviously, like there was a lot of neglect that Gen X and elder millennials experienced, and um,
Hmm.
I think that we're definitely actively trying to parent differently. I see that going to different extremes, like sometimes I'm like, yeah, good job. And other times I'm like, that seems problematic. Yeah. Because people can go like so far in the other direction that they're actually, don't even discipline. And discipline is a strange word because it's like, I think kind of patriarchal, but like children really do need boundaries in the sense that like, hearing no is very important, letting your kids be mad at you like you were saying, like sometimes like when you're a parent your kid is going to be mad at you because you're creating a boundary and you're saying like this is actually not what's going to happen, and you have to be able to hold your child being mad at you and not be like, oh my god, you're mad at me, and like let them have too much what's the word, it's like kids don't thrive when there isn't some sort of like container. There
Yeah.
needs to be some sort of container in order for them, because they have to learn how to like contain um different aspects of themselves over time, so yes, it's like expression is really important, but they're also, we are part of the fabric of society. We have to learn how to be part of a fabric of society, and like
Mhm.
as a parent, that is like part of your um work, so in that, your kid is going to get mad at you sometimes, and you're going to have to say no, or you're going to have to say like, actually, we're not going to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm not great at like managing my children. Like I don't I don't
You're
feel like
so you're outnumbered.
yeah, no, I am. I
And I
mean, it's intentional. I am a very like I told my 13-year-old the other day. I said, in some cultures, you would be married with children right now in your own house. Like, I feel like we baby the shit out of our kids, and we're not giving them any skills for how to like go through life. So it's very intentional that I'm like hands off. You have to learn how to monitor yourself. But obviously, when they were little, they
No,
had
I agree. I think that it was interesting. Someone, I can't remember who said it. I don't remember where I got this advice, but that like they were saying how it's like very disempowering when we do things for our kids that they could do for themselves. So
yes,
it's like once they can like get their own socks on, you gotta let them get their own socks on. It's like when my kid, honestly, like she was 3, and we would be like, all right, like once she was no longer in a crib, we were like, you do not wake us up until 7:30. Like we're not waking up at 6. You can wake up at 6. We're not waking up at 6. Like we actually need to sleep. So you can wake us up at 7:30. Like this is what the clock looks like at 7:30. Maybe she's like 4. I can't remember, but she was pretty young. And we would just like be like, here's a snack in the
hmm
morning. This is where your snacks are. You go, you get your snack in the morning, and then at 7:30 you wake us up and we'll make you breakfast. And like that's what she did.
yeah, I
And
love that.
she's like fine. And like she's been like, I don't know, that like, independence is important because it like teaches them that like you are not here on this planet. My function as a mother is not to serve you.
Right,
My
right.
function as the mother is to witness you, is to be there for you, is to nurture you, but I am not a servant for you, and like we have to prioritize like each other in this like context, like, and I think that like that is something that when children learn that, like, oh, my parents, their sleep is a priority because they must be rested in order to have the energy to like go about their lives. Like that's something that is an imprint in my kid that like she gets, like our health is a priority to her, because like we cannot be parents if we're not healthy and we're not thriving, and like
I
if
love that.
we're exhausted.
Yeah,
Like it wasn't hard for her to understand this concept.
yeah. Well, you were emulating that from a very young age.
But
If
also,
you're,
we only have one. Having one kid is so different than two. I will say that till the end of time.
yeah. It is exhausting. And I mean, I was a single mom for most of their life. It,
Yeah, it's
it
really
was,
hard.
it was exhausting. And
Yeah,
you're not taught self-care. So you're just like spending all that you have.
yeah,
Deplete. You stay in a state of depletion.
yeah.
Um, I was telling, I can't remember who it was. One of my podcast guests said she feels like the trauma therapy that's now is changing the structure of how we carry on our lives because it's teaching us to be in our bodies. And I feel like that is where everybody starts transitioning when you like, I'm sorry, I'm switching gears, but for whatever reason, this came to my mind that especially for men, if they end up in the hospital with panic attacks, thinking they're having a heart attack, and then the doctor has to talk to them about stress levels. And then they start researching, well, how do I manage my stress level? And then somehow they end up doing somatic work, right? And that changes everything about how you function in the world. When you understand that your body is constantly talking to you, giving you information that is priceless that nobody else has but you, it changes the landscape of how we move through the world. And our kids are seeing that, whether they're, I mean, my son fights me on it all the time. He's very patriarchal. And I'm in a small town in Texas where, it's all about, the man, serving the man, getting a good job. finding a wife, having kids, going to church, all the all the things. So he fights me consistently about it, but I'm like, it's gonna find him eventually. That the research is coming for him, whether he's ready for it or not.
Yeah, and like not that you asked, but like it does seem to me that like what he's really fighting is like belonging, and that
Mm,
like he wants to belong, and here he has this mom who is like questioning and like actually not prioritizing belonging, but instead prioritizing your own understanding of society and the world, and like that's just like threatening his sense of belonging at this here now moment of being what I'm assuming he's 15.
yep.
So like he's just wanting to belong. And like it's like, wait, I got this mom who's like challenging that. So I mean, I think you're doing a deep service by, not prioritizing belonging, but like as long as he's in this kind of brainwashed system of patriarchy that he is like all his friends, I'm sure, his social status, all of that, it's survival at this point. And
You are right.
hopefully when he leaves, like things can change if he leaves.
You're right. And I think it is so funny because I was writing a thing about Brene Brown's quote. I keep talking about her today for whatever reason. She's like on my brain that fitting in is not the same as belonging. And like they're struggling with fitting in, right? Their nervous system is telling them this is survival. This
Yeah.
is what you have to do. This is the words that you say. This is how you move your body. This is
Yeah.
the belief systems that you have, all those things.
Yeah. And it's hard because you are in a very conformist place.
Yeah, I do have a great tribe of people that are little rebels. So
Yeah.
I'm
But I'm
thankful
sure
for
at their
them.
school, they don't have that. And the rebels are outcasts, and everything is about conformity, and everything is about, like, are you presenting? And, like, I think in the South, it is like, I don't know the South very well. I don't have a lot of experience down there, but like, I was down in, where was I? Florida. And, I was listening to some of these girls talking, and I was like, damn, like it did make me realize that the level of conformity, the expectation of conformity in the South, of course you kind of have it in New England in the North, but it's different. There is more like
Mm,
opportunity, I think, in the North to like not be so conformist.
mm.
I do think that. I think y'all down there, like the pressure is heavier.
Yeah, it's intense,
Yeah.
really intense. And I feel like, when I first moved here, I had a lot of side eyes, but it was fine navigating that because I knew y'all are just in a program, right? You're
Yeah.
in a cohesive unit, just acting like little robots in your lives because that's what we're taught to do, right? Um, the South is intense. Texas is intense. There's a lot of weird shit happening here. But I do feel like there are pockets of it that are rebelling against it, and
Of course. Yeah.
hopefully that's the wave. I tell everybody the little people are the ones that are going to change the world. The ones at the bottom that stop tolerating the bullshit. That's
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's like it's interesting because it's like I'm always confused about racism, because I'm like, how are people still thinking this is even like cool? Like because I was raised in the North, I was raised in the city, like I was raised with hip hop. Like to me, like that was all very cool too. And so like culturally, I was never like seduced. I like racism never seduced me in any way. 'Cause I was like, that's not fucking cool. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't understand how people didn't see like the cultural influence and like and didn't respect and didn't value the cultural influence of non-whites. Like I was just like perplexed to me. And even now, like the Bad Bunny thing was so telling, right? Because like to me, I'm like I could go on and on about like the psyop of Hollywood. Okay. And I'm not saying that like people that get to the level of Super Bowl aren't part of like some Hollywood darkness that is worth investigating. And I'm definitely not a fan of Lady Gaga, but I was just like, oh my God, this performance is like undeniably cool. Right. And this friend of my daughter's, and again, like we're in the North, so New Hampshire, obviously there's racist people in New Hampshire, like without a doubt, New Hampshire is an ethno state. So it's not like the North doesn't have racism, it does. But like one of her little friends was like, really like, I'm gonna watch the American halftime show and like I should call ICE on Bad Bunny. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, girl, that is just so, I'm like, what a dorky thing to say. I was like, what is wrong with you? And it was interesting because my daughter was just like not having it. She was like, no, like absolutely not. And like they got into this like whole like debate about racism and immigration, But I was just like, I'm like, damn kids, like I'm just like, but when I think about again, like we were talking about like the conformity and the fitting in, it's like shocking to me that people still want to fit into like the racist ideology, but that is still very strong. And that is something we really have to look at and face because that is what Turning Points is all about, right? It's like this is the trying to make this stick with young people to be like racist and white supremacist.
Oh, it's just disturbing, isn't it? I was, this is another just aspect of that looked weird. I was talking to this man and he was telling me how disgusting transgender people are and gays and all the things, right? And he was a young guy, like 20 something. And I said, "So who do you think gets to decide what's right and wrong? Like who is right for existing? Who is naturally, you know, God, whoever God approves of, right? This is the perfect specimen. This is a human being that is born perfectly. Who gets to decide that? You? I mean, why aren't they valid for existing? Because they fucking exist exactly as they are. And you don't
Yeah.
have to change a thing. Like you're telling them you offend me, so therefore you need to change. Buddy, it is you that has to look at your own shit. Why are you offended by the fact that they exist?
Well, I think the thing, I mean, I don't know if you've gone into this, but a lot of transgender and non-binary creators that I've seen have talked a lot about the research around like the people that are most transphobic are sexually attracted and like use are the people who are frequenting that pornography and who are like most
Oh, that makes me
involved.
cry.
Yeah, so it's like the discomfort comes from your own identification,
Mm,
you know? And
oh,
then,
that
like, sometimes I think the way people say it is almost like an insult, but it's like, I appreciate your reaction, which is like, it's just like extreme self-loathing that you actually identify with this, and you are attracted to it. And then you hate yourself for it because it's like homophobia is the one of like, I think the biggest like tools of grape culture because men are often the perpetrators of grape. They're not the only,
what is great.
it's like 93% of perpetrators are men and a lot of victims are
Oh,
boys.
you're saying rape culture.
Yeah, but
Okay,
grape, just
great.
for the
I got you. Sorry.
and it's like as long as homophobia is so prevalent, it's going to be impossible for men to talk about how they've been abused. It's going to be impossible for boys to talk about how they've been abused. Like, this is why there was so much cover up in the Catholic Church, just because it was like so shameful to
Mm.
admit that you were abused by another man. Right. So homophobia is like an incredibly important tool for grape culture because it keeps men silent
Oh man.
and it keeps boys silent.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
as
the
we talked,
transgender is also to make people afraid of that is what they're really hating is their own femininity, right? They're hating the anything that they think would be feminine inside of them as well. And we're all feminine. Everyone is feminine, just like everyone's masculine.
yep,
We are all have the
yep.
gender spectrum inside of us, but to hate your feminine is to hate like a huge part of you.
I totally agree with that. Oh my gosh. I think that, I mean, I don't know. Women energy is going to be the wave of people waking up. We're doing it. Women are waking up and transforming men. They're following, right? Husbands, I've had so many of my girlfriends that are waking up to all the ways in which they've lost themselves. And it changes the dynamics.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, I've been thinking a lot about like, and these are not like fully formed thoughts. But there's a lot of women who are like really angry and they're kind of like they're mad, and the way that they're talking to men and about men is like with a lot of anger. And I'm like, I get it and I understand it. And at the same time, I think we have to admit that like women have been programmed by patriarchy to the same extent that men have been programmed by patriarchy, just like we've all been programmed by white supremacy. And so like as a white woman, it is very important for me to just shut up and listen to people who are talking about the Black experience, the Hispanic experience, the Asian experience, the indigenous person's experience. Like I have to not like take on the defensiveness when like I'm listening to people who are angry
Mm-hmm.
about white supremacy. Like I can't listen with this attitude of like, well, I'm one of the good ones and not me. I have to just actually take myself out of the conversation and listen and like not make it about me. And I think what's difficult for men is that because a lot of women are angry, they're so defensive, and because they're defensive, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. But the reality is that like part of the healing is to actually hear it, is to actually be able to sit with the anger and be like, okay, because just like I've benefited from white supremacy, males benefit from patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they also don't benefit from patriarchy, because they don't, just like there's many ways in which my humanity has been stripped from me because of white supremacy, I still economically benefit from it. I still systemically benefit from it. So it's like, this is the conversation that we have to be having, is that in what ways have these systems like stripped us of our humanity, and what ways have they had us benefit from like a capitalist worldview, and being open to both of these being valid.
Yep. Yep. And I mean, I think that the conversation that I am trying to get us to be aware of is that we're all stardust, right? We're just here temporarily in these human bodies, and we've created all these systems in which we're supposed to function within that have nothing to do with who we actually are physically created to be, right? We're just like constantly being asked to lay down our spirituality, essentially our souls, for the sake of what? Money, status, what?
Power.
What's the point? Right. And it's all an attempt to make ourselves feel important and significant when we don't have to do a fucking thing to find that. We just are existing in that state. And so I think, I just read this book, God is a Black Woman. Have you read that?
No, I've heard of it though.
Ugh, it was really hard to read as a white woman. And I think at the end of it, I had to think through all the ways in which I'm complicit in this problem, right? And but at the end of it, I'm like, we're all humans who have experienced incredible pain and trauma. There is not a person alive that hasn't, in some way, shape, or form. And for us to unify, it's to remember that we're just fucking stardust. We're seriously balls of light, just experiencing this thing and creating reality, right? Does that make sense to you?
Of course it does. Yeah. And it just makes me think of like, it's like the trauma that people, it's like, okay, like a lynching was a very public thing. So obviously it was incredibly traumatic for the person experiencing a lynching and the family members and the community where that was experienced, in the Black community in the Jim Crow
Mm,
era. Like obviously that was like a deep trauma. But then you think about all these like white people watching,
mm,
surrounding this and watching. You think of like the white children watching. That's another form of trauma. It's not like, oh, poor, but also that was traumatic. And like, I think that what white people have to reconcile is that like a deep, like soul sucking trauma was enacted when all of this violence was enacted on others. And
Hmm.
that has impacted the DNA of white
Hmm.
people who are, like we already know that trauma gets passed on through DNA. We know this, like potato famine, Holocaust, whatever. Like it does get passed on. And then the trauma of how desensitized you would have to be to witness the lynching. Like that is I can't even imagine. I truly can't imagine witnessing that. I cannot imagine that. So like think about the desensitization that had to happen for those people in that moment, and then that trauma is passed on. So it's like I think what you're doing, or what you're, what I was hearing when you were talking about reading that book was like the chipping away at the desensitization of like our DNA, and like allowing yourself to just feel
Yeah.
the horror.
Yeah. The horror. What are we doing to each other?
Yeah.
We're all one. So
Yeah.
what happens to one happens to all of us.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that would be lovely if we would like fucking get that, because energetically it matters.
Yeah.
Um, God, what a great conversation. I feel like I need to go sit and meditate for like an hour, maybe smoke a joint.
Oh, well, I love that for you.
Thank you so much for doing this with me. Do you have
Yeah,
any last
totally.
thoughts, something that you want to make sure you say?
If anyone wants to follow me, I'm TONINAGY on all the platforms. And also my website is TONINAGY.com. On my website, you can book one-on-one sessions with me to do somatic work. There's also 3 different offerings that I have. Somatic offerings. One is a morning practice for people who want to like get in their bodies in the morning. The other is a grape trauma release practice. So if you've experienced any form of trauma around grape, it's an hour-long practice that you can do to like help work through whatever happened to you in your body and in your spirit. And you can do it as many times. These are all just like online products that you buy and then you have for the rest of your life. And then there's also a course I did called Free Your Body, which is a 1-month course. It's only $55. And it's like you have 4 somatic practices that you do for a month long, and you have a lot of homework around your mother, around your father, around society, and around you. So you have the physical processing, and then you also have like some mental processing to do around these issues. And I think for a lot of us, like when we go to practitioners or psychiatrists or whatever, even though talk therapy can be super helpful, we're still bringing in our like trauma responses of like, how do we deal with people? I want my therapist to like me, yada, yada, like, so this is an opportunity for you to just do self-guided healing work that like no one else is interfering with, and you get to be your own medicine person.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. I'm so
Sure.
glad you're in the world, Toni. What a
Oh,
gift
thank
you
you.
are.
You too.
Yes. Okay. Well, I will thank you for this conversation. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.